Hello all, Yankee farm wife here. So it's been a minute since we've done one of these, and I apologize, but it was a complicated week. Monday was colonoscopy prep, Tuesday was colonoscopy, Wednesday I caught the cold that everyone else on the farm has had, and by Thursday night I thought I'd catch up with any politics I'd missed, and I quickly decided I'd rather have another colonoscopy, mostly for the anesthesia. According to the man who would be king, Donald Trump, children are being targeted in grammar school for gender switching operations that they never requested. One day they innocently go to school thinking they're going to learn some history or math or maybe pass a few notes in class, and 2 days later they're taking hormone replacement therapy pills, much to the surprise and chagrin of their parents who had enough to do with trying to find affordable daycare. It seems the schools are forgetting to send home permission slips.
President has such power. It does. It has such power. For instance, you can close the border. You don't need a bill. You know, they keep saying, well, just give us a bill. It's just they had the worst bill I've ever seen. They wouldn't have signed it anyway because they do want open borders. They want to have open borders. They want to have all sorts of things that almost nobody in this room wants, who I think 85–90% of the country doesn't want if they actually
I absolutely
know about
agree
it.
with you.
But the transgender thing is incredible. Think of it. Your kid goes to school and comes home a few days later with an operation. The school decides what's going to happen with your child. And you know, many of these childs 15 years later say, what the hell happened? Who did this to me? They say, who did this to me?
Here come the questions. I asked my son-in-law Craig about this. He's a teacher in a small school district in Connecticut, and I was wondering if they had a full-service sex change clinic there, or do their kids get sent to bigger schools that have complete surgical units? I also asked him, who chooses these kids? Is there a test, like when they identify kids for gifted and talented programs, or is there a raffle situation where it's luck of the draw? Also, is there a mandated number of children who must be transed, or is it principal's choice, or is it up to the janitor, or maybe the lunch monitor, or a committee of lunch ladies? Roll of the dice? Craig moved in a little closer and sniffed my breath and asked if I'd taken any magic mushrooms with that bourbon, and I said no, just a couple handfuls of granola right out of the box, and next thing you know, he decides I wasn't getting the kids for their weekly Saturday night sleepover, and I still don't understand why not. Oh, and while we're talking about sleepovers, are those Virginia Slims you're smoking in those silk pajamas? Nice purse. Remember my last video about projecting as being a form of confession, as in he who smelt it dealt it? Oh, done by artificial intelligence, you say, but I'm supposed to believe children are having sex change operations at school? What if I choose to believe that's actually you? The way you and Donald pick and choose your false narratives. You look like you're ready to read a night-night story to your children right there. Speaking of sleepovers and grandchildren, and I am very fond of mine, but it turns out that J.D. Vance thinks I'm not pulling my fair weight in the daycare department.
It's very hard for working families to get by. How will we lower the cost of daycare?
It's such an important question, Charlie. And I think one of the things that we can do is make it easier for family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that you know, maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more, or maybe there's an aunt or uncle that wants to help out a little bit more. If that happens, you relieve some of the pressure on all the resources that we're spending in daycare.
There you go, JD. Solving the daycare problem is almost as easy as buying donuts. Now, who do you hang out with? I must know, because I'm pretty tuned in to what the other parents are up to in my daughter's crowd, and from what I can tell, their parents either still work full-time or retired and moved to Florida so that they don't have to babysit at all anymore. Now, at most, they endure being a flop house for theme park visits, unless they are Indian, of course, and then the postmenopausal grandmother always quits her job and moves right in. Right? You lucky dog. Now, I remember in the 80s, I asked my mother, who was between jobs, if she could fill in for daycare for me, and she said sure. And then she named her price. Now, we tried that for a few weeks, but I couldn't afford her. I ended up finding a nice daycare lady named Noreen who fed the kids better at lunch than I ever did at dinner. All the right colors on the plate, not just a Portuguese roll and a deli pickle from the Wawa. Not saying I've done that. And one more thing for JD, but Donald, you should watch it too. It's a classic.
Liz Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris.
Oh, no.
It's so interesting, isn't it, that every failed warmonger in the established D.C., let's just say, machine, is behind Kamala Harris. That the peacemakers are behind Trump and Vance. Blessed are the peacemakers, is what the scriptures say. Your thoughts, JD?
Well, maybe the best thing, not the very best thing, but a very good thing that I could say about the next presidency of Donald J. Trump is that he's going to make sure that people like Liz Cheney are laughed out of the Oval Office instead of rewarded, because this is a person whose entire career has been about sending other people's children off to fight and die for her military conflicts and her ridiculous ideas that somehow we were going to turn Afghanistan, a country that doesn't even have running water in a lot of places, into a thriving liberal democracy. And for that, Liz Cheney was willing to kill thousands of your children. Liz Cheney, you know what? I think it's the best thing in the world that she's supporting Kamala Harris. You are right. Blessed are the peacemakers. Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney make very, very interesting partners. They get rich when America's sons and daughters go off to die. They get rich when America loses wars instead of winning wars. And they get rich when America gets weaker in the world. We want American strength, American security, and most importantly, peace. Let's bring peace back to the world. And Donald Trump is the candidate.
Okay, first things first. I hear a lot of places in Appalachia don't have running water. Does that mean we should bomb the shit out of them? I mean, if that's all it takes. Now, having to use a hand pump to draw water? I want you to remember something. Remember the global war on terror? Think back, way back. The authorization for the use of military force. September 18th, 2001, ringing a bell? It brings me to my word of the day, and that is Google. Yes, JD, I'm familiar with Google. I'm not afraid to use it. That was George W. Bush, Republican, overstepping the normal constraints of the presidency. Whoever would have thought that was possible? Oh, wait, a Republican, kind of like Trump plans to ditch the Constitution, pardon the January 6th rioters and himself, jail anyone who's ever crossed him, and deport the rest of us to parts unknown. And as always, I am hinting for a one-way ticket to British Columbia. JD, your assessment of who voted to go to war with Afghanistan was so emphatic. Do you believe if you shout really loud and act condescending enough, it will change the actual facts? Donald thinks so too. That doesn't change the actual fact that every single U.S. legislator, Republican or Democrat, voted aye to go to war in 2001. Every single one, except for one Democrat and two who voted present. And I am always kind of embarrassed for people who vote present. Oh, and by the way, Liz Cheney didn't get elected until 2017, 16 years later. So technically, we could say she voted not present. If you're going to spread information like that, I will take the liberty of spreading information like this. At least it's artificial intelligence, not barely moderate intelligence. JD, Google is your friend. Use it. And speaking of, you have a smartphone. Smartphones make up for a lot of stupid. So when something like this comes up, whip that phone out of your pocket or your purse and look this stuff up before you open your mouth. We will wait. Now, one day your children are going to see all of this online, unless you get your in-laws to homeschool them and keep them permanently off the internet. Good luck to you for that, because they're going to have questions for you, and I can only assume how you will answer, like, liar, liar, silk hot pants on fire. By the way, Do you read bedtime stories to your children in that outfit? Sincerely, the Yankee farm wife.